Beloved soul, there are no coincidences, and this moment is not random. If these words are reaching you right now, it's because something beyond the visible world gently guided you here. You didn't stumble into this message, you were led. There is a quiet movement happening around you, unseen but intentional, as if the heavens leaned closer and whispered your name. Something meaningful is unfolding in the spaces you cannot yet see, and your spirit sensed it before your mind did. You may have felt a subtle pull, a pause in your breath, a feeling that said, "This is for me," even if you couldn't explain why. That's because a truth is circling you now, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Not all messages arrive loudly. Some arrive like a soft hand on your shoulder, steady and sure, reminding you that you are not forgotten, not overlooked, not late. You may be standing at a crossroads emotionally, questioning love, purpose, or your own readiness for what you've been praying for. You might feel tired of waiting, or quietly wondering if something real is ever going to meet you where you are. This message finds you because your soul is prepared for a shift, even if part of you still feels uncertain. There is a presence watching over your path, arranging what must align before the next door opens. Something sacred is being formed on your behalf, something that requires patience, trust, and a heart that has learned through both longing and healing. You don't need all the answers right now. You only need to stay here, listening. What's meant for you is already moving closer, and the fact that you are hearing this now is a sign that the unseen is preparing to speak more clearly. Your soul hasn't been called by accident. It's been called because it's ready. What is coming toward you is not a fragile kind of love that asks you to shrink or perform. It is a steady presence that finally allows your nervous system to rest. And the reason this is touching you so deeply is because you have lived too long carrying quiet disappointments no one ever validated, loving deeply without being met, staying loyal to connections that drained you, wondering in private if something was wrong with you for wanting love that felt safe instead of chaotic. The unseen has witnessed every moment you stayed kind when it would have been easier to close, every time you chose growth over bitterness, every season you kept going without applause, and nothing you endured was wasted. There is a movement already underway that does not depend on your effort or your perfection, only on your willingness to stop punishing yourself for the past. The loneliness you felt was not a sign of abandonment but of preparation, like soil being turned over before something living can finally take root. And just as seeds grow in darkness long before they break the surface, a connection has been forming beyond your awareness, shaped by timing rather than desire. You have asked in silence if love was meant for you or only for other people, and that question itself was born from wounds that were never meant to define your future. There is a story in Scripture of Elijah hearing the divine not in fire or thunder, but in a gentle whisper, and this is how what is coming will arrive, not as chaos or obsession, but as recognition, as peace that does not need to announce itself. And here is the turning point. Before this union becomes visible, something within you is being quietly untangled, old narratives dissolving without drama, beliefs loosening their grip, not because you forced healing, but because the season for carrying them has ended. You may notice a strange calm where anxiety once lived, or a release of attachment to outcomes you used to chase. And these are not accidents, but signs that space is being cleared for something that cannot enter a crowded heart. The love approaching you cannot compete with old pain. It requires room, and you are making that room simply by choosing honesty with yourself. You do not need to become more worthy, because worth was never the issue. Timing was. Somewhere, another soul has been walking a parallel path, learning restraint, learning softness, learning how not to project old wounds onto new beginnings. And when your lives intersect, it will feel less like discovery and more like remembering. You will not have to convince yourself. Your body will know. Your spirit will settle. And the question of why it took so long will dissolve into gratitude that it did. What is aligning now is precise, intentional, and closer than your mind believes. And the reason this message is stirring you is because your soul recognizes that the chapter of waiting is closing, not with noise, but with certainty. If this message is speaking to your soul, don't wait, like this video and subscribe now to stay connected on this sacred journey. Declare your readiness in the comments by typing, "I am ready now." And let's take this step together in faith. But hear this carefully, because what is coming will not only comfort you, it will challenge the version of you that learned to survive instead of receive. This love moving toward you is not arriving to fix what is broken or to fill a hollow place, because you were never incomplete. It is coming to stand beside you as an equal, to meet you where you are and walk forward with you. And that truth touches a deep ache you carry from years of feeling like you had to earn affection, prove your worth, or hold yourself together alone. You have waited through seasons where silence felt louder than answers, where nights stretched long and you wondered if patience was quietly punishing you. Yet every step you took while doubting still counted. Every tear still taught your heart how to soften without surrendering itself. What you endured was not delay but design, a shaping that could only happen through lived experience. And even the loneliness served as a refinement rather than a rejection. Your spirit already senses that something has begun to rearrange itself. A subtle shift in the atmosphere around your life, as if unseen hands are drawing lines that finally converge. And although your eyes cannot confirm it yet, your body feels calmer than it used to when you imagine what comes next. Now, listen closely. The whisper inside you that keeps returning, that quiet certainty that rises when you least expect it, is not imagination, but recognition forming ahead of time. The same way the heart knows when a truth is near before the mind can explain it. If you rush past this moment, you may return to patterns that once felt familiar but no longer fit, and that quiet discomfort will follow you until you are willing to listen again. You are being guided not toward a love that demands you disappear, but toward one that welcomes both your strength and your tenderness. One that does not ask you to perform healing but simply allows it to continue naturally. Be gentle with yourself as this unfolds, because you have survived moments that taught you to armor up, and this next chapter will ask you to soften without fear, to trust without losing yourself, to rest without waiting for something to go wrong. The one who is moving toward you does not see only what you present to the world. They sense the depth beneath it, the quiet loyalty, the resilience built in private, the parts of you that never needed to be loud to be powerful. And their pull toward you is not driven by desire alone, but by a recognition that has been seeded long before this moment. This connection has been activated in the unseen, growing in parallel as both of you release old lessons at your own pace, and neither of you is behind. You are not required to become different to be chosen, only more honest with yourself about who you already are, because the love approaching you responds to truth, not effort. And when your paths finally intersect, something irreversible will happen inside you. You will realize that the ways you learned to protect yourself can no longer follow you forward. This will not feel dramatic, but it will be decisive. You will not be able to pretend you don't know anymore. And in that moment, the waiting will not just end, it will make sense. But before you recognize them, you will recognize yourself in a way you never have before. And once that happens, there will be no returning to the version of you who stayed small just to stay safe. The one who has been dreaming of marrying you is not arriving to repair you or fill a missing piece, because the truth you were never taught is that you have always been whole, even in the seasons when you felt unwanted, overlooked, or chosen last. This love comes to walk beside you, not ahead of you or above you, but shoulder to shoulder, where you are no longer required to become easier, smaller, or more convenient to be chosen. The soul moving toward you carries its own scars, its own hard-won clarity, and when they step into your life, it will be with sincerity rather than strategy, presence rather than promises, choosing you not out of obligation, but out of desire that renews itself each day. You have spent years absorbing the quiet pressure to become easier, softer, less intense, more convenient. Believing love would only stay if you edited yourself. Yet what is forming now responds only to your truth, not your effort. This love will not arrive with conditions disguised as concern or expectations framed as care, because it has been prepared in the unseen to feel steady, mutual, and safe, the kind of love that shows up consistently and stays even when life is not impressive. This is where it becomes clear. What is unfolding between you is not coincidence or chemistry alone, but a convergence that has been guided long before either of you could name it, shaped through parallel lessons, parallel losses, and moments when both of you wondered if something real would ever meet you at your level. You may still carry doubt, the kind born from disappointment rather than disbelief, questioning whether a love this calm and sincere could truly be meant for you. But your worth was never in question, only your timing. Every ending you survived, every unanswered prayer, every season where nothing seemed to move forward was quietly positioning you for a connection that requires maturity, self-respect, and the courage to receive without suspicion. You are not invisible to the forces guiding this union, and you have not been waiting without purpose. You have been ripening. Somewhere, the one chosen for you has been shaped by their own delays and awakenings, learning how to love without control, how to stay without losing themselves, how to choose partnership over ego. And when your paths finally cross, it will feel natural rather than dramatic, certain rather than rushed. The pull between you will be undeniable, not loud but grounding, not overwhelming but clarifying. And in that moment you will realize that the long road was not punishment but protection. You are being prepared for a love that will transform how you experience life, not because it rescues you, but because it finally meets you where you stand. There is something you rarely give yourself credit for, and it is the quiet endurance that shaped you while no one was watching. The way you kept choosing integrity, softness, and faith, even when it felt like life kept answering you with silence. You learned how to stand alone without becoming hard, how to hope without demanding guarantees, how to keep your heart open while protecting its core, and those invisible choices mattered more than you know. What you sowed was not loud or performative, but it was consistent, and the unseen has been responding to consistency all along. The ache you carried, the sense of being out of season with the world, the feeling that others seemed to receive what you were still waiting for, that was not punishment or neglect but refinement, the kind that deepens a soul rather than breaking it. There is an ancient story of Joseph waiting in obscurity while his destiny ripened in silence, not because he was forgotten, but because the timing of his elevation required a depth he had not yet reached. And in the same way, your waiting has been stretching you, strengthening your discernment, teaching you the difference between attention and devotion, between attachment and alignment. And now, the shift you are sensing is not sudden inspiration, but the echo of something already set in motion, a convergence of inner readiness and outer timing that cannot be rushed, yet cannot be stopped. This connection does not ask you to abandon your edges or dim your depth. It meets you exactly as you are and reflects you back with reverence, strengthening what already lives inside you rather than reshaping it into something smaller. You may notice that old patterns no longer satisfy you, that conversations you once tolerated feel hollow, that your spirit resists settling for what once seemed acceptable. And this is not restlessness but calibration, your inner world adjusting to meet what is approaching. The seeds you planted through restraint, honesty, and self-respect are beginning to respond to a different light. And though you cannot yet see the full form of what is emerging, you can feel the ground changing beneath your feet. This is how preparation reveals itself, not with spectacle, but with a quiet certainty that you no longer need to chase what is meant to recognize you. You were never meant to force doors open or convince anyone of your value. The alignment coming toward you responds to authenticity alone. There is a reason your heart has been asked to mature before being asked to merge, a reason your solitude taught you how to listen rather than cling, and a reason your disappointments sharpened your clarity instead of extinguishing your hope. What is forming will require the version of you that knows how to stand steady, how to receive without suspicion, how to love without losing yourself. And you are closer to that embodiment than you realize. The unseen has been recording your patience, honoring your restraint, and weaving your lessons into a path that is narrowing now, not to limit you, but to guide you precisely. As this next phase approaches, you are not being tested but trusted, invited to step forward not as someone waiting to be chosen, but as someone ready to recognize what has been moving toward them all along. As this message settles into you, let it move beyond understanding and into a quiet kind of readiness, not the kind that rushes or strives, but the kind that gently makes room. Nothing more needs to be proven, and nothing needs to be earned, because what has been set in motion is already responding to who you are, not to what you do. The invitation now is simply to align your daily life with the openness your soul is beginning to feel. This may look like noticing the thoughts you return to when no one is listening, and choosing to loosen your grip on the ones that quietly tell you to brace for disappointment or to expect less than you desire. It may mean allowing yourself to release an old identity that kept you safe once, but now feels tight. The version of you that learned to stay guarded, over-prepared, or emotionally distant just to survive. You don't have to dismantle everything at once. Even a small willingness to think differently creates space. In your physical world, this same readiness can take shape in simple ways, like clearing a small area of your living space, not with urgency or symbolism, but as a gentle signal to yourself that you are no longer holding every corner closed. As you move through your days, you might find it grounding to write down what you are quietly hoping for, not to manifest or control it, but to acknowledge that your desire is allowed to exist. Pay attention to what repeats itself around you, not obsessively, but with curiosity, as if life is beginning to speak a little more clearly now that you are listening without tension. When moments arise that ask for a soft yes, a moment of honesty, rest instead of resistance, or presence instead of distraction, allow yourself to respond without overthinking whether you are ready enough. You do not need to feel fearless or certain. You only need to be willing. This preparation is not about perfect alignment or constant positivity, but about creating an inner and outer environment where something new can enter without having to fight for space. Go slowly. Let your nervous system learn that anticipation does not have to feel like pressure. Trust that even on days when you do very little, the unseen continues its work, and your role is simply to stay available rather than vigilant. Each time you choose presence over protection, honesty over habit, or rest over self-judgment, you are quietly cooperating with what has already begun. Nothing is being delayed by your humanity, and nothing will pass you by because you moved gently. This is how the message becomes lived, not as a task to complete, but as a way of allowing your life to gradually reflect the truth your soul has already accepted. What you felt stirring as you listened was real, and it mattered, even if you couldn't fully name it, because recognition often arrives before clarity. The resonance in your chest, the quiet stillness, the sense that something ancient and personal was being touched, none of that was imagined. What has been spoken here has already been received, already marked, already set into motion beyond what your eyes can track, and it does not require you to hold it tightly or manage its outcome. It is moving with an intelligence older than effort, guided without force, unfolding without urgency. The fact that you are still here now is not incidental. It speaks to a place within you that recognized itself in these words and stayed, not out of curiosity, but out of knowing. There is nothing more you need to do in this moment, except allow what has been acknowledged to continue its work in you, quietly and faithfully, like something growing beneath the surface before it breaks into view. This is not a conclusion, but a threshold, a gentle crossing into a season that will reveal itself in layers rather than announcements. As it is written, the path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. Carry that with you, not as instruction, but as assurance. You may leave this space without closing your heart, trusting that what has begun will meet you again, in ways both subtle and unmistakable, as you continue forward. Let us take a gentle breath together and enter this moment of prayer in stillness and trust. Eternal God, source of all wisdom and unseen order, we come before you not in fear or urgency, but in quiet recognition of your faithful presence that has never left us. We thank you for the way you have guided this soul through seasons that required patience more than answers, through valleys where silence became a teacher and endurance became an offering. You saw every choice made when no one applauded, every act of love given without assurance of return, every moment of obedience that felt costly yet necessary, and you counted it all. We honor you for the work you have already begun in the unseen, for alignments set in motion beyond human effort, for doors prepared before we ever knew to knock. As it is written, you make everything beautiful in its time, and we rest in that truth now. We offer gratitude not only for what is coming, but for what has shaped this heart, to recognize peace instead of chaos, truth instead of illusion, companionship instead of striving. Cover this listener now with a calm that surpasses understanding, a steadiness that does not depend on circumstances, and a clarity that gently lights the next step without revealing the entire road. Where there has been weariness from waiting, release rest. Where there has been doubt born of disappointment, restore discernment. Where old identities no longer fit, grant the courage to lay them down without grief. We do not ask you to rush the unfolding, but to anchor this soul in trust as the process continues, knowing that you are neither late nor careless, but precise and kind. Prepare the inner ground to receive what you have already prepared to give, not through perfection, but through openness, not through effort, but through availability. Let love arrive without fear. Let peace settle without suspicion. Let recognition come without striving. As it is written, those who trust in you shall renew their strength, and we receive that renewal now, quietly and completely. We place this life, this season, this becoming into your hands, confident that what you have ordained cannot be undone, and what you have begun will be carried through with faithfulness. We seal this prayer not with demand, but with surrender, trusting that you walk ahead and beside and within every step that follows. And now, thank you for remaining here in this sacred pause, for lending your presence to this shared prayer. You are not alone on this path, and you never have been. May you carry this stillness with you gently as you go, held, guided, and at peace until we meet again. Before you leave this space, know that you are gently invited, never required, to lay down a few honest words in the place where others will read them with care. If there is a desire you have carried quietly, a pain you rarely name, a confusion that has followed you, or a fear you have never given language to, you may place it there as an offering rather than an explanation. Right not to be fixed and not to be judged, but simply to be seen. God sees every word written in sincerity, even the ones that feel small or unfinished, and no prayer shaped by truth is ever overlooked. When you allow what is inside you to take form, even briefly, you are not exposing weakness, you are making space for light to enter. You are not speaking into emptiness, and you are not alone in what you carry. There is grace that meets honesty, and mercy that gathers what is shared in trust. Let your words rest there without pressure, without needing response or resolution, knowing they are held with reverence. Others here are carrying words just like yours, and when they are placed together, they are held with care. As you write, may you feel supported rather than vulnerable, accompanied rather than isolated, and gently reminded that you are walking this path within a love that does not abandon, forget, or turn away. Stay soft with yourself and go in peace.